Hi everyone, it is such a pleasure to be here. I feel really honored actually to have a chance to moderate a panel amongst such a fantastic group. As was mentioned, we wanted to take a little bit of have a little conversation about the funding of Research for Life. We heard yesterday that this is indeed a challenge to raise funds, and so I think it's really good for us to have a conversation with two of our larger funders to find out why and how we can encourage others. So of course, Research for Life's mission is rooted in equity, and we've just been hearing about that, of course, ensuring that researchers, students, and institutions in low and middle income countries have access to the knowledge they need to drive progress locally and globally. But this mission is only possible because of the commitment of partners and funders, including a dedicated group of publishers who go beyond providing their content to offering long-term financial support and other forms of support. And so if I look around the room, I do see other examples of publishers that I know are also contributing, and we're really grateful to that support at whatever level it comes. But here on stage today, I'm delighted to introduce two of our long-term publisher supporters of Research for Life since the very beginning, which I think now is nearly 25 years ago. So it was mentioned yesterday, next year we've got a big anniversary coming. And so I'm joined here on stage today by Liz Ferguson, who is Senior Vice President of Wiley's Global Research Publishing Organization, and Ylann Schemm, Vice President of Corporate Responsibility at Elsevier, as well as being the Executive Director of the Elsevier Foundation. And they're both going to be talking about why their organizations support Research for Life. So if I might begin with you, Liz, and just ask why your organization is supporting Research for Life.
Yeah, as you said, Caroline, this is a 25-year almost anniversary for Research for Life. And that relationship with Research for Life has been present in all of my time at Wiley. And it actually preceded that as well. So it's a long-term commitment. And there's probably three headline reasons why Wiley started to commit to Research for Life and why we still do. And the first one of those is really the partnership ethos that exists within Research for Life and that is a core part of what Wiley does. Probably everyone knows us for publishing with lots of societies and for trying to drive that sense through everyone that works at Wiley that we're here to partner with the global research community. So it's now a 25-year partnership story, which outlives many of our society relationships. This is really long-lived. It's a fantastic thing to be a part of. And it started really because we recognized that Research for Life was probably going to be the single most effective organization in helping us drive knowledge across all boundaries that existed at the time, and that there wasn't another entity out there that would enable us to do that. The second headline piece, and I'll give you some tangible examples of each of these as well, is really a kind of representation of some shared values. So it's our mission, has been for a long time, to drive the knowledge that we publish as far as we possibly can around the world, and to drive the generation of knowledge as far as possible around the world as well, insofar as we've got a relationship to be able to do that. So this is very much an investment for us. We don't see this as philanthropy. It's an investment in the researchers and the students, in the institutions that house them, in all of the infrastructure that people in this room and beyond put around those individuals. And that's our commitment and our investment back into the system. And then we get some really tangible benefits out of it as well. And the reason I'm saying that explicitly is because if you're in the room and thinking about maybe being able to participate in funding Research for Life, but you're not necessarily the one or the only one who has access to the checkbook, you might have to persuade someone else that you actually get something really out of this as well. So a kind of soft version of that is it's a real demonstrative commitment to our work with the UN Sustainability Development Goals, and it also strengthens our position as a trusted partner. But I just want to take a moment to give you like a real tangible example of each one of those three headlines. So on the partnership front, I think there's a network effect that comes from partnering with Research for Life. I was talking earlier about how research is clearly an increasingly global collaboration. There's a real drive, for very good reason, to make sure that the contributions of researchers in the countries in which the research is being conducted are properly recognized and properly given credit for what they do. Now, without connecting everyone equally into the knowledge network, you don't have the opportunity to really drive that from within those countries too. So that's a fundamental role that we see for Research4Life, and a reason for why we support it. It accelerates the insights that come from diverse perspectives, diverse experiences, and from the places where this research really matters most. I guess from the shared value side of things, as a company, we invest in infrastructure as much, if not more, as the focus that we've got on driving content. And that's something that Research4Life has now been doing for a long time, and that you've all been doing as well. So there's a real alignment there in the way that we see the evolution of scholarly communications and its consumption. And then on that really direct benefit for the people who hold the checkbook, the work that we did with Research4Life really informed the way in which our transformational agreement with SANLIC, covering South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, evolved, so that it wasn't merely a representation of what we'd done in Europe, replicated and tried to move to Africa, but it was recognition that there was other work to be done in addition to providing content and the right to publish open access. It was the kind of engagement with researchers on the ground, talking to them about how to respond to reviews that might seem pretty rude and unconstructive when you're dealing with it for the first time, how to be a constructive reviewer and how to make yourselves known to journals and so on, all with the support of the librarians in this room and elsewhere besides. So as Research4Life goes into its next quarter century, it's going to take our investment with it, and it's also going to take the kind of that partnership ethos further forward as we continue to think about what Research4Life can really deliver in so many different ways.
Thank you. And Ylann,
well,
yeah.
So Liz, you're a very tough act to follow. I also think so much of what you have just articulated resonates with Elsevier and resonates with so many of the publishers in the room. And I think many of us...
Oh, we actually can't hear you, Ylann.
Oh, I'm
so
so
just
sorry.
want to make sure we can hear a little more.
Have you got the button on?
I'm seeing green.
Yeah, it's better now. Yeah.
So I think it resonates with so many of us, and it started with 6 publishers who I think are almost all present here, back almost 25 years ago. But we're now over 200 publishers, and I would really want to emphasize that it's been a learning journey for publishers and for all the partners that are involved. So it's why we joined in the first place. Karen Hunter was a librarian at Elsevier, and she really understood the need to build access. And and there are always wonderful stories about sitting in the back of a bus with Barbara Aronson from WHO and how it all started and bringing everyone together, and that's wonderful. But of course, well, but I think it was critical to grow with the times, and we'll talk a bit more about that. But I'd like to just cast your mind back. At the time, it was print to electronic migration. This is what was on people's mind. Like, my gosh, you've got this incredible potential, and yet there's a whole part of the world where you're still working with dusty journals. And Irene, you described how you went and photocopied all the journals. And so I think there was a real burning sense that we have to do something. And maybe that was a philanthropic consideration. But as the journey evolved, I think there was an understanding of how, well, to the point where we are today, that 60% of the research is now coming from low and middle income countries. And my colleague Brito Cruz recently did a whole paper on this, so you'll have to ask him more about that. And so that means that it may have started for Elsevier as a philanthropic considerations, but I think it's evolved along the way to understanding that this is the future. Researchers in developing countries, evidence-based healthcare coming out of low-income, this is the future. And so if I can just point to ways that Elsevier has learned, but also the Elsevier Foundation, which I have the pleasure of running. We've for instance, off the back of our involvement with Research for Life, we founded Scientific African, which was, it's a big open access journal with very low APCs. It's multidisciplinary, and it's one solution. And I think at the same time from the foundation, we went in and we started working with the African Journal Partnership Program. And this was back in 2016, with the understanding that you need to stimulate the research from low-income countries, whether it's through an Elsevier platform or the local journals. And I feel like it's been this whole dialogue over the years. And there has also been very much of the commercial consideration. I would say that is a tribute to the agility of Research for Life, to the pragmatism of the partnership, to the fact that publishers, yes, they want to do the right thing. They want to inspire their employees. They want to give back. They want to find ways to do this, but they also have market considerations. They have to balance all of this. So some years ago, the Research for Life Executive Council, I think it was back in 2010 or something, moved from, either publishers could provide their content to a country or not, which created a lot of, PR liability for publishers. And so they worked on developing a whole system by which publishers could really differentiate between different institutional categories, and so be very targeted, about, okay, well, we have a wonderful direct agreement in this country, and so we can still continue to provide access through Research for Life to all these other institutional categories. There's no such thing as perfection, but I think what you see here is a real strength of Research for Life in working with so many different partners, both nonprofit and commercial. You have to be pragmatic, you have to be agile. So I think, let's see, the industry action was really, really appealing to us. We wanted to work together. And so I think there is room for all of us, and the more we collaborate to support initiatives like Research for Life, the stronger it gets, the more we can contribute. But I think for us, it was very, very appealing. As a larger publisher, you also get a lot of, attention, good and bad, like Wiley, like Taylor and Francis. And it's wonderful to be working together to move things forward. Does that give a sense?
Yeah, and I think what I'm hearing from both of you is, not only is this is one of those wonderful things where it's not just that it's the right thing to do, but it actually is great from a market perspective. Because why would you also not want to recognize this excellent research that is taking part and to help continue to foster that in other parts of the world that we would otherwise not be, we would be missing this knowledge, or it would, be picked up by others, right?
So if you don't mind, I'd like to just share, what personally hooked me was back in 2008, I organized a panel on Research for Life. Kimberly was on the panel, and so was Dr. Mohamed Jallow from Senegal. And it was such an experience, because when I understood what Dr. Jallow was doing, he's a urologist in Senegal, one of the very, very few, and he was not only practicing medicine, he was not only publishing himself, but he had discovered Research for Life, or Hinari at the time, back in 2005, and he'd made it his life's mission to go and train other doctors and healthcare providers. And he went on to, I think he has something like 100 peer-reviewed articles, but he's also making emergency missions for fistula repair and you name it. He's such a leader and an example of someone who embodies Research for Life. And so for me, what was really an amazing moment and wanting to become a personal champion was meeting someone like Dr. Jallow. And I think that is significant for Research for Life, because there are so many of these champions here in the room, whether publishers or users, country connectors, you name it.
Yeah, very inspiring. I was wondering too, and I think you started to pick up a little bit on this already, Ylann, I might turn to you first. Has there been something that you were just talking about things you've learned, but were there also some things that surprised you? And you were already talking about some things that inspired you, but anything that kind of surprised you along this long-term road that you've been taking?
Yeah, I think it's just the degree of it's a bit of the flip side of the champion coin, because I first became involved contributing to the communications and marketing team, and then I became its chair for 6 years, and then executive council, and then the chair of the executive council. And each of those steps along the way, you realize, like, my goodness, it's so incredible what gets done on a, with a very small budget, but the sheer degree of knowledge and insights in the room, I think that just amazed me. Yeah.
And how about you, Liz? Are there things that have surprised you or that you've learned over this journey?
The surprising ties very much into something that Ylann just said, and also that Dr. Norbu said earlier. Every time you read a Research for Life report or you hear case studies and stories at meetings like this, the amount of impact that you can get for a relatively small amount of money and a very high degree of commitment from the kinds of people that are in this room and working as country connectors and so on elsewhere is incredible. You take a small amount of money and it turns into thousands more researchers knowing how to, whether it's access content, do things differently. I think steps like getting journals from the countries that we're talking about here indexed is a major, major achievement and a major step forward. And, all publishers struggle with getting submissions to new journals. I can't even imagine what it's like trying to do it without the marketing budgets that we've got and so on. So making those connections with organizations like DOAJ, the things that don't cost any money at all and the impact that they can have. And then the multiplier effect that you get from just a few pounds, dollars, shillings here or there. It's just a constant, shouldn't be a source of surprise, but it's a source of amazement and, very impressive.
If I can just build on that, another thing that really struck me, it was when I was the chair of EXCO and we were undergoing the strategic reviews at the time, building the evidence base, was this whole realization that we needed to shift from just being an access-driven partnership to focusing much more on the entire research cycle. And it was such a no-brainer, and yet it had taken so many years to get to this point. Because, of course, to tackle the challenges of our time, we need all the talent, we need all the knowledge, we need, available. So it's moving from, I guess it's it was a bit of a blind spot, but this sort of north to south driven partnership to something much more equitable, so that you are really creating more of a possibility for researchers from low-income countries to drive the knowledge, to drive the discussion. So from consumers of knowledge from the north to producers of knowledge that are really going to tackle the SDG challenges. And this is such a no-brainer. And yet I think that just shocked me. Like, how could we have had this blind spot? But that's what I mean about a journey. We're in it together, and it took, when was this? Was 2020. Looking at Sarah, because she played a seminal role in all of this. Thank you. And for me personally, as I'm involved, Sarah is, of course, our STM staff member who's deeply engaged, as everyone knows. And so I feel I'm a little bit more on the sidelines. But when I have this opportunity to take part in an event like today, I think it really strikes me just how this is not about simply access to content, albeit that being very, very important, but really so much more about the capacity building, about us in the North understanding, learning, allowing folks to kind of drive where they want things to be going and not the opposite of things. So I have a question that wasn't on the prep sheet in advance for both of you as we start to wrap, but I'm thinking more about those next steps. So as you said, things have been evolving. Are there things that you're thinking about as funders that you think are going to be the important ways in which Research for Life could be evolving? Do you have any thoughts on that? I do. I think it builds off of the really important work that the Equity Committee is doing. So it's really for every publisher partner to be thinking about what they can do in their own shop, in their own organization to create a more equitable system. So by that I mean things like editorial board diversity, peer reviewer diversity, training around this. And so much is already being done, but it's really, for instance, if I think of gender equity, we've been very consistent at Elsevier working on this, really finding pathways and so applying the same rigor and methodology and working together as an industry, because we do not need to solve this alone, each in our own silos. We need to work together for best practice. And I think Research for Life has these thought leadership opportunities. And it has expressed that in many ways, for instance, the APC waiver guidelines, but also what is best practice in editorial board diversity? How can we work on this? And so I do think working hard on that part of the equation as publishers is critical in doing it together.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, my answer is a bit more vague, and I'm going to invoke the dreaded letters that have not been mentioned so far in this panel, and it's AI. I wish I'd been here yesterday for that session, but I'm curious about whether AI lends us an opportunity to leapfrog some of the development stages that some of us bigger publishers have had to go through in thinking about the evolution of scholarly communications, and how so much of what we do has set the agenda for what a good journal looks like and how it operates and how it should be embedded in all of the established systems of publishing, and whether that allows some more opportunities for the journals and the publishing needs of publishers and researchers in lower and middle income countries to leapfrog some of the rather staid measures that we've had in place for a number of years now.
Very interesting. Yes, because we've seen other leapfrogging examples outside of our industry, so why could that not happen here as well? Just very briefly in our last couple of minutes, and I think we've already touched on this, but if we can kind of succinctly say this, I talk with lots of publishers. You mentioned that we now have over 200 who are contributing, which is fantastic. But we know that we have many, many more than 200 publishers out there. So what is our very succinct message about why should other publishers get involved with Research for Life and to contribute? I'll start with you, Liz.
Okay, multiplier effect. You're not starting something new and fresh and on your own. Every pound, dollar, whatever that you add is going into a big pot that's already doing a great deal of good. So it just amplifies what's already there. I guess there is also something in, I can't think of something else as a publisher that we invest in that single-handedly kind of invests into advancing global health, sustainability, innovation, all of those good things, all of the research interests covered by the countries that we're talking about and addressing through Research for Life, and at the same time kind of starts to help address issues of equity as well. And if those aren't compelling enough, I'll try and think up something else before lunch.
No, those are wonderful. What she said. I also, if you think of a self-serving reason, I think one of them is that it's a really beautiful, it's a really prestigious public-private partnership, and it works. And it's an opportunity to really take part in that and to contribute and to be visible in this. So I think it's a lot of organizations are looking for a very good fit for their contributions. This is a good fit, but it's also very beneficial because you deepen your understanding about researchers and all the other user groups that use the Research for Life. You deepen your understanding, and so also your ability to reach out and grow in those regions. Yeah. And I just want to, highlight the country connectors because we've heard a lot, and we're going to hear some more, and that's amazing. I mean, it's only been the last 3-4 years that they've been with us, and yet they have completely professionalized and deepened the training and the impact. And the growth of Research for Life in those countries. And so I think publishers can support and be part of Research for Life on all these different levels. You can support a country connector and grow the network. You can bring your people in and learn a lot more about all the different aspects of research capacity building. You can have your ambassadors, your analysts, really getting in there, working with the UN, telling the stories. There's just so many different levels from which you and your organization can benefit from Research for Life.
Yeah, and I think as I'm listening to you too, I'm reflecting over this is one of the very few examples I know of where you've got publishers, librarians, institutions, researchers, I mean, all of the stakeholders, funders, coming together around one sort of area of work together. And that's unique, I think, rather unique. And so I thank you both for sharing those ideas. It's helpful to me, who can go out and be a better recruiter together with Sarah, of additional publishers to get involved in this work. As STM, I'm incredibly proud to be a partner in this work. And I appreciate the organizers allowing me to join both of you today and everyone to have these conversations. Yeah, last thought. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to have a call out to Sarah Phibbs, because she has done an incredible amount to bring the publisher community closer to our user community. And I think, you know, you've been amazing. You've hit the ground running. What is it, 2 years ago? Nearly 3. And you've been brilliant. And I think really you deserve a big round of applause.
So thank you to Ylann and to Liz.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to advance the slides as we depart. Oh, was there a quick question? I'm sorry, please.
So we are charged with recruiting new publishers. And I think the last time we tried to do this, the question I got was, like, what's in this for me? Which you have responded to. But the revenue thing. So when you have a publisher who's, thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot about the microphone. Did everybody hear me so far anyway?
Yes.
So the revenue issue is a real issue for smaller publishers. So you can have the Wileys, the Elseviers, and it's not a huge amount of money, but for an upcoming fledgling publisher, this is a real issue. The other issue that we've run into is technical considerations. How do we make sure that the people who need these products are the people who are accessing them? How do, the control, the loss of control. I'm putting all my information out there. I don't know who's actually using it. So I don't know how this has been addressed. I think having talking points as we try to solicit interest from publishers would be great, because I honestly made stuff up. I don't know if I was convincing, but it would be nice to know the best way to respond to those kinds of concerns.
And I know, again, because both of you have large organizations, you might have a thought, but I also wonder, Sarah, if you have a thought, because you are speaking to these smaller organizations, some of whom have managed to solve this and some who perhaps have not.
Yes, what I would suggest is that we work together on some FAQs. So I think probably we have been asked a lot of these questions before, and on the technical side, definitely Kimberly will help. So I think we should work together. We have got very small publishers involved. Some are in the room, so I could also introduce you to some of those as well, because that isn't really a blocker, because there's flexibility to design the access to suit your organisation, and that's obviously a critical part of the programme. So,
thanks, Sarah. Yeah. Oh, there was another. Yes, this is great. Oh. Running over.
Thank you. I'm Thomas from Sierra Leone. One of the challenges, particularly for countries in lower income, for access to Research4Life is the digital divide. Because it's an online platform, in most cases, most countries really don't have access to internet. When I came here, it's easy for me to just scan and get connected. But in most of the universities, I actually look after my research connector for universities in Sierra Leone. So one of the challenges has been, I don't have access to internet and the libraries and the city. So I think Research4Life have already started working with RANGE, Research and Education Network. Within Africa, we should try to strengthen that because they provide connectivity to the universities in that area. Otherwise, the commercial providers are limiting those institutions from accessing the knowledge of Research4Life. So I'm appealing that that momentum for the Research for Life team to start working with the NRENs. In Africa, you have UbuntuNet for South and East, and in West Africa, you have WACREN and also the Arab state. Let's strengthen that so that we can improve connectivity in this university. And when once that is done, I think the digital divide can be mitigated. That is my own appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that that gives a good segue to later on in the day. I know we'll be hearing about the technical group, and that might feed into that conversation there as well. So I'm going to if you'll join me in thanking Liz and Ylann.